We make things. We use our hands, minds, and machines to build, to fix, to improve. We're known as do-it-yourselfers, home improvement fans, fix-it fanatics, inventors. At our core, though, we're all makers. So let's jump in and make something.
Hi, I'm Ron Hazelton. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to install a classic ceiling system that has the look of traditional embossed panels, but is extremely lightweight, surprisingly easy to install, and very affordable. Then, just for the fun of it, we're going to make a custom wooden mailbox for a young man who makes a profession out of entering contests. Finally, a terrific solution for repairing holes in walls, especially when the repair has to be super strong.
The other day, my wife was looking at our dining room ceiling, wondering what could be done to give it a bit more interest. An online search led her to this decorative ceiling tile website. She came across this expanded polystyrene design, part of the company's A la Maison collection, and ordered a couple of samples. When the tiles arrived, one of the first things I noticed was how lightweight they were. So before we committed to putting up an entire room of these tiles, I thought, well, why not put a couple up just to sort of get the effect? So here's one of the tiles right here, and I've cut some masking tape. I'm just going to roll this up here so that the sticky side is out and apply this to the back of the tile. And now what this is going to do is going to allow me to get an idea what these will look like without putting any kind of permanent adhesive on the back. Use the flat of my hand here. Push it up. There. I can begin to get some idea of how it's going to change the appearance of the room. Laying out the tile pattern typically involves using intersecting lines to find the center of the room, then installing the tiles from there outward using the lines as guides. To do that, we measure each wall, then locate and mark the center point. We do this on all 4 walls. Next, I drive in a small finish nail on the mark. Loop one end of a chalk line over the nail, move to the opposite wall, locate the center mark there, pull the line taut, and snap. I repeat the process for the remaining 2 walls. The point where the 2 chalk lines cross is the exact center of the ceiling. It's also the original location of the chandelier. However, in this room, the chandelier has been moved a bit to allow it to hang directly above the dining table. I'd also like the chandelier to be in the exact center of a tile, so I offset the starting point to accommodate this. The tools and materials required for this installation are simple and readily available. Because the polystyrene tiles are so lightweight, they can be installed using a high-tech instant grab adhesive like this one. I cut the tapered nozzle so that it will produce a medium-width bead. Using the built-in piercing tool on the caulk gun, I puncture the seal at the base of the nozzle and then load the cartridge. The adhesive is best applied in dime-sized dabs, spaced about 6 inches apart. I begin installation starting at the chalk line intersection, aligning the edge of the tile with the lines on the ceiling. Once the tile is in position, I press it firmly using the flat or palm of my hand. Putting up the full tiles goes quite quickly. Here's where having a second person to apply the adhesive can save time and avoid a lot of trips up and down the ladder. It's important to make sure the tiles are pushed tightly together, the corners are aligned, and that the edges follow the chalked guidelines. To cut and fit the tiles around the perimeter of the room, I measure the distance from the last full tile to the wall, or, in this case, the crown molding. I make 2 measurements, since the distances may not be the same. Then transfer those measurements to a tile, align a straight edge with the marks, and cut through the tile using a utility knife. A couple of tips here. Place a sheet of cardboard or other soft material on top of the work table. This will reduce drag on the blade as it cuts through and keep the blade sharper longer. I find a utility knife with a snap-off blade makes it quick and easy to restore a sharp cutting edge. Making 2 or 3 passes with light pressure produces a clean, smooth cut. Cutting out for electrical boxes can be easily done after the tiles are installed. Before taking the chandelier down, I made sure to turn off the power at the circuit breaker panel. Now, using a utility knife, I can simply insert the blade, carefully cut my way to the edge of the box, and then use the box as a template. There are a couple of ways to cut openings for air conditioning or heating ducts. One method is to measure the distance from adjacent tiles to the edges of the opening and transfer those measurements to a tile. To avoid drawing on the face of the tile, I use painter's masking tape. Another approach is to place the tile in position, then use the edge of the opening as a cutting guide. Although the tile seams are barely visible, they can be sealed with acrylic painter's caulk. Cut the cartridge nozzle to provide an opening that's about 1/8 of an inch in diameter. This will reduce the likelihood of overfilling the joint. Smooth the caulk with your finger and clean up any excess with a damp cloth. These tiles can be painted after installation or can be ordered pre-painted from the supplier. That's it, the elegance of an embossed ceiling in a matter of hours and at a very affordable cost. An ideal do-it-yourself home improvement. Well, today I'm headed out to Studio City, California. I'm going to be visiting Steve Ledoux. Now, Steve loves to enter sweepstakes and contests.
What he lacks is a good mailbox to handle the huge volume of mail he receives every day. So we're going to build one.
Now, is this typical of the amount of mail you get every day?
Actually, it's lighter than normal. I get so much mail because I enter all those sweepstakes and contests.
What I think we should do here, Steve, is design a custom mailbox for 2 reasons. First of all, I want to make sure your new mailbox is large enough to handle both the size and the volume of mail that you're getting, okay? So when it gets to be that big, I think we want to build it so that it kind of blends in with your house.
Great.
Together, Steve and I design a wall-mounted mailbox. We'll craft it from solid wood, and it will consist of 2 main parts, a frame and a bin. The bin will sit inside the frame and be hinged at the bottom so that it can open and close.
Have you used a table saw much before?
When I was in wood shop a long time ago, that's the last time I used it.
Since this project will require accurate cross cuts on the table saw, I decided to construct a simple accessory called a cradle. It's a sort of wooden sled that will allow us to easily hold the wood in position as we cut. We start with strips of wood called runners. Small pieces of double-sided carpet tape and a bead of glue are placed on one side. Then the runners are set into the table saw grooves, glue side up.
This is going to be the bottom of our cradle, right here, just a piece of plywood. So if you could take that edge over there.
Steve and I place the plywood down on the runners.
Set this down so that the front edge of the plywood is just about even with the front of those sticks there.
The double stick tape acts as a temporary clamp, holding the runners to the bottom of the plywood. Then we turn the plywood over.
And there's our rails. Wow. Now that positions the rails exactly where we want them.
Okay.
Now we nail the runners in place. Next, we flip the cradle back over for a quick test. I turn on the saw and raise the blade so that it cuts through the center of the cradle. I stop the cut a few inches from the end. Next, we apply glue to the edge of a 1x3. Set the wood on the rear edge of the plywood.
Back to me just a little
Use
bit.
a framing square to make sure it's perfectly perpendicular to the saw blade, and clamp it in position.
So Steve, if you grab that piece of 1x3 over there, and let me just turn this up on edge.
Carefully, we turn the cradle over and secure the fence with finish nails. Finally, we place a second fence on the front of the cradle.
Good warm-up for the mailbox, huh? You need a piece of cake by the time we get to the... All right, so let's just try this out, Steve.
Okay.
Lay the board up against this edge, flip on the saw. Hold both sides. This gives us a very accurate cut and a lot of control. So we're going to use this a lot this afternoon.
All right.
All right. This is something I made up to go with our saw cradle right here. This is called, I call it a stop block.
This attachment can be clamped anywhere along the rear edge of the fence, and once in place, will enable us to duplicate pieces of lumber cut to exactly the same length.
Ready to cut?
Yes.
Now this is one of the sides to your mailbox. What we're going to do is we're going to cut this corner off right here, just as sort of a detail.
As we've seen, the rear fence of a table saw cradle can be used to make very accurate straight cuts. By temporarily attaching an auxiliary fence, the cradle can also be used to make very precise angle cuts.
Now if we've done this right, these should be just about perfect matches. Huh?
Looks exact.
With all of our pieces cut, we can begin to assemble our mailbox, starting with the frame. The L-shaped top and bottom sections are made up of 2 pieces of wood. Steve brushes water-resistant glue along the edge of one board. I hold the second board in place as Steve attaches them with nails.
So here's our top.
Okay.
Here's our bottom. And these are the sides that we cut earlier.
Next, we attach the ends to the top and bottom of the mailbox, and our frame assembly is complete.
Well, I've been sanding off our frame right here. Steve's been over cutting out the last few remaining pieces, actually. And those are for the bin that's going to go inside this area right here.
And here they are.
Oh, good job. Very nice job. Okay.
Thank you.
So this is the bottom. This is the front of the bin right here. And this is the back. This is where your mail is actually going to go right here. And this unit right here was going to fit inside that opening right there.
I don't put it
Again, we use glue and nails to attach the sections of the bin together.
My thought is, this is the bin that's going to hold your mail, that we hinge this on the bottom so that it'll flip out this way.
We attach the bin to the frame with a piano hinge. While Steve holds the hinge in position, I install the screws. With the mailbox complete, I plane down the edge of the bin to ensure a smooth opening and closing.
Well, here's our handle, which we made out of just a scrap piece of that redwood.
That looks nice.
Clamp the handle in place, then drive in the screws from the inside of the bin.
Good.
Since it's a tight fit for the drill, we use a drill bit extension to give us a better angle. Finally, we install an address frame and house numbers with a bit of clear silicone.
All right.
We did it.
Steve has decided he wants the top of his mailbox right here, and I've drawn a level line, so we're going to go ahead now and start to mount this. The first thing we want to do, Steve, is to drill some clearance holes in the top and bottom. So I've got these marked for you here, so why don't you go ahead and drill those.
Intersection here.
Now, what we want to do is transfer the location of these holes up here in the wall.
I hold the mailbox on the level line and center it. Then Steve passes a small masonry bit through the mailbox holes and marks their location on the stucco. Next, we enlarge the holes with a bigger masonry bit and hammer in plastic anchors. We put the mailbox up and install panhead screws through the mailbox and into the anchors. Finally, Steve applies a coat of exterior house paint. All he has to do now is wait for those lucky sweepstakes forms to arrive.
Big difference from this to this.
Very big difference. I love the way it looks, and it will actually hold all of my mail. That's the best part about it, too.
Whether Steve's new mailbox brings him good fortune or not, I'm sure he'll feel like a winner whenever he opens it, knowing that it didn't just come from a store, but from his own 2 hands.
Now, when you've got a couple of young kids around the house like I do, this kind of damage is, well, not all that surprising. What I think happened here is that my daughter found it was a lot of fun to swing on this gate, and her weight simply pulled that toggle right out of the wall. Now, I need to make a repair here that's strong enough to hold the new toggle when I put it back in again.
Before starting, I head out to my van to get a couple of tools and the material I'll need to make the repair.
Now this is a scrap piece of 1/2-inch wallboard. It's the same material the wall is made of. The first thing I'm going to do is to cut a small patch out of this that's slightly larger than the damaged area right here.
To cut wallboard, I make 1 or 2 passes over the paper front with a sharp knife. Break the board, then score or cut the paper on the back. I always like to keep a few wallboard scraps around, just for repairs like this. Next, I place the patch over the damaged area and trace the outline onto the wall. I also mark the top.
Now this is a wallboard saw. You notice there's a really nice sharp point right here. So to get this started, all I've really got to do is place this on the line, kind of give it a little bit of a twist and a push, and it goes right in. Well, that's just about a perfect fit. And when you think about it, well, it really has to be, because I used the patch as a template to draw the outline, and then I put this arrow up here so that when I put this back in, it's in the same position as it was when I drew the outline.
Next, I apply some glue to the back of the patch, lay a piece of 1/4-inch plywood on top, and attach it by driving screws through the wallboard and into the wood.
Now this long screw right here is going to be a handle. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this backer board. Think of those as kind of tabs. All right, now I'm going to slip the whole patch up inside the hole. I'll grip that nail and secure this patch in place by running 2 screws through the wall and into that piece of plywood in the back.
With the patch secured in place, I fill the gaps around the edges with joint compound. After letting it dry and sanding it smooth, I touch up the paint. Next, I reposition the gate post, drill a locator hole, bore a larger 1/2-inch opening, insert the bolt, screw on the toggle, push it into the wall, and tighten.
Well, there we go, good as new. Actually, this is a little bit better than new because that toggle is now resting on the plywood and not just on the wallboard. But I am going to have a little chat with my daughter, see if I can't find something else for her to swing on.
To view today's projects again and countless more, go to HouseCallsDIY.com. Step-by-step home improvement tips when you need them.
I'm Brian Kelsey. Welcome to House Calls.
Join us as we tackle some great home projects, as well as look back at favorites from Ron Hazelton on House Calls.